Chapter 7, Science and Sorcery. Right after lunch, Ginger headed off to science and sorcery class. Because Ginger was the daughter of a witch, she automatically was registered for most of the evil classes, such as general villainy and home evilnomics. But even though sorcery was often a villainous activity, all of Ever After High students were required to take it. The classroom looked like a mad scientist's laboratory, with rainbow liquids percolating in the class files and in glass vials, and steam rising from the floor vents. There were cauldrons for brewing potions, HP strips for testing weather, and microscopes for studying microscopic dust bunnies. Ginger felt comfortable with most of the equipment, especially since the double boilers and thermometers were the same kind she used it for melting chocolate. Because it involved the study of recipes, science and sorcery was one of her favorite classes. Unfortunately, the teacher, Professor Rumpelstiltskin, was one of her least favorites. A nasty-tempered, gnomish man, Rumpelstiltskin spent as little time as possible instructing his students and as much time as possible punishing them. His favorite form of punishment was the pop quiz, which most often had nothing to do with science or sorcery. One day he gave a pop quiz on daring socks. Turned out he had a big hole in his own sock and wanted to find out which of his students could fix it. No one would have volunteered on account of the professor's feet being rather hairy and unpleasant smelling. Rumpelstiltskin also gave extra credit assignments at random. If students chose not to do the assignment, however, he'd force them to climb a ladder to the classroom's attic and weave straw into gold with his magic spinning wheel. Ever After High School Board had banned Rumpelstiltskin from doing any spinning himself because of a criminal past in which he tried to force people to spin gold and give up their first board. So, by forcing his students to do the work for him, he was technically not defying the school board. No one liked him. He was cranky and rude and hollered all the time, but the school administration put up with him because he possessed a vast amount of knowledge regarding science and sorcery. Ginger sat on her assigned stool facing the front of the classroom. The rest of the students took their places and the room fell silent. When the class bell rang, Professor Rumpelstiltskin climbed on top of his podium. Because he was almost 3 feet tall, he got a better view from up there. He pushed his large hat from his eyes and glared at his students. His gaze
settled on a girl in the back of the room. "Miss Wood! Come here!" he bellowed. There seemed to be no other setting on his vocal dial.
What does he do in a library? Ginger wondered. Cedarwood walked to the front of the room and stood on the podium. "What is gold?" he demanded, pointing to a bracelet. "That is gold," he demanded, pointing to a bracelet that encircled her wrist. Everyone knew that you should never wear gold to Rumpelstiltskin's class, and if you accidentally wore some, you should lie about it. But Cedar was incapable of lying. "Yes," she said. "Pop quiz," he announced with a stomp of his foot. "If you answer correctly, you get extra credit. If you answer incorrectly, you give me gold." This was entirely unfair, but that was how it worked in Rumpelstiltskin's class. No one ever answered the Pop's quizzes correctly. He pushed his sagging hat up the forehead. "What is my middle name?" "I don't know," Cedar said. "You have 3 guesses." Stiltskin. So Stilts. Though everyone liked Cedar, no one helped because helping would result in some sort of punishment. She shrugged. "Is it Ralph? Is it Gus? Maybe Bob." "No, no, no!" He stomped 3 times. The podium wobbled. Cedar removed the gold bracelet and placed it in his outstretched hand, and with a sigh she went back to her stool. "I forgot I was wearing it," she muttered as she passed Ginger. Rumpelstiltskin tucked the treasure into his pocket and chuckled happily. Then he stopped again. "Open recipe book!" Ginger eagerly turned the pages in her hex book. She was the best in science and sorcery class because it often required the same skills used in cooking, measuring, mixing, but unlike Ginger's cooking, which often included improvisation and experiment, and sorcerer's experiments, was set in stone. Precious was key. Precision was key. When an anti-headache potion called for an ounce of stinkweed, a few leaves more could induce head swelling, and a few leaves less would induce a head shrinkage. It was serious work. "I hate lab work," the girl sitting next to Ginger whispered. Her name was Fabel Thorne, daughter of the dark fairy who'd cursed Sleeping Beauty. She looked quite the opposite of Ginger.
While Ginger was decorating with swirls and gumdrops and sprinkles, Maybelle wore dark glittered print tunic dress with sleeves that were covered in thorns and webbed lace, and the two girls were definitely not friends, even though their families had long traditions of mutual respect and admiration. Maybelle Thorne took her villainous bloodline very seriously.
She looked down her nose. At those who rebelled against their villainous destinies, including Ginger. But Maybelle had made a point of grabbing the stool next to Ginger's on the first day of class, and thus they'd become lab partners ever since. She'd lazily reply on Ginger to do all the work. Rumpelstiltskin waved his book in the air. Today we make boot cleaning potion. Hearing that the potion wasn't evil, Ginger sighed with relief, but Maybelle groaned. Boot cleaning? Are you serious? Why? Because I have dirty boots! That's why! That's kind of funny. During the remaining class time, beakers were broken, eyebrows were singed, and one student created so much foam it covered the floor. Ginger knew that mistakes were necessary when learning to cook, whether making a boot cleaning potion or a birthday cake. She'd ruined at least a dozen batches of pixie pies before mastering that recipe. But sometimes in the kitchen, a cooking mistake could lead in a new, exciting direction, like the time she whipped too much air into her souffle and invented a floating cake. What's taking you so long? Maybelle complained as she peered over Ginger's shoulders. If you helped, it might go faster, Ginger said. Then she measured a single perfect drop of phoenix feather oil. Help? Maybelle unfurled her wings and hovered a foot off the floor. Why should I help? You're the daughter of the Candy Witch. You're supposed to be an expert on following recipes. Maybelle smiled quickly. Wickedly. How about we turn it into a boot eating potion and teach Rumpelstiltskin a lesson? No way, Ginger said. Maybelle made a that sound. You should start taking your legacy seriously. I heard you only got 5 viewers today. Poor little Ginger. Clearly no one wants to watch you make goodies. You should cook up a wicked goodie and feed it to someone. Now that would be a show worth watching. Ginger set the beaker over the wisp of flame. I'm not interested in poisoning anyone. How many times do I have to tell you that? I'm just trying to be helpful. Maybelle rose higher, then sat on the counter. She crossed her legs and started hexting on her mirror phone. We daughters of the world's greatest villains should stick together. By sticking together, you mean I should do all the work but you should get the credit. Exactly. At the end of class, all the other boot cleaning potions had proved failures. The potion from apple and cedar made Rumpelstiltskin's boots sag. a happy song. Fail! The potion from Humphrey and Dexter made his boot ignite. Fail! But when Ginger placed the single droplet of the potion on each of Rumpelstiltskin's boots, the crusty leather immediately sparkled and gleamed. Ginger and Baybel received the highest marks of the day. The dismissal bell rang. Another perfect grade, Baybel said with a smirk. I'm wickedly amazing. Then she flew out of the classroom, leaving a small cloud of fairy dust in her wake. You're welcome, Ginger called. She was tired of Baybel taking advantage of her, and she was equally tired of Baybel lecturing her about her evil destiny. Usually Ginger would try to ignore all the nasty compliments that came out of the sheer hexing fairy's mouth, but one thing she'd said had actually made sense. You should cook up a wicked goodie and feed it to someone. Now that would be a show worth watching. Could she do such a thing? Could she stoop so low as to just to save Spell Kitchen? Ginger waited for the classroom to clear. Then she took a deep breath. Professor Rumpelstiltskin, may I ask you a question?